I'm Bill Hilton, here to tout loose tenon joinery. It's the router woodworker's answer to the traditional mortise and tenon joint. In the small one-man shop, underfunded, undertooled, the router is the ideal mortising tool. It's fast, versatile, and it's available. And with a router you can cut crisp, clean tenons as well. But I've always hated whittling those terrific square-cut tenons to fit into my sweet, rounded, router-cut mortises. So pox on it, there's a better way. Route identical mortises in the parts you want to join, an edge mortise and an end mortise. Then make a separate piece, the loose tenon, to fit the mortises and tie the parts together. For me, it works like a charm. The mortising tools are commonplace, a plunge router, an edge guide for it, straight bits. This fixture is essential. It holds your workpiece either on the horizontal for edge mortising or on end for end mortising. I call it a mortising block. But you can't buy it, you have to build it. And it is really not difficult to build, as you'll soon see. Here are the parts: the body, the clamp base, the top support, the two work holders, router stops, guide track pieces. I took all of them from a single 8/4 hardwood board. The first step is to route these keyways. To do that, I've installed a 3/4 inch straight bit in my router table and adjusted the router for a 1/4 inch deep cut and positioned the fence. I want the cuts in the body and holder to match perfectly. Two essentials: both parts must be square and both must be exactly the same length. I've clamped the two parts edge to edge and I've cut the first dado in both at the same time. Now I'll turn the work around and cut the second dado in both pieces. The cuts for the vertical work holder run with the grain. The groove width and depth are the same, so all I do is move the fence. I cut a groove in the body parallel to the top edge. Then I cut a dado across the vertical work holder. Next, we've got to fit the keys. You want to start with a piece that's a little fat and whittle it down bit by bit with a little hand planing so the fit's snug. But don't glue the keys to the holders right now. Wait until after you've routed the mounting bolt slots. The work holders bolt to the mortising block. To allow the position of the holder to be adjusted, you route slots for the bolts. The bolts turn into tapped holes in the block. I'm going to make the slots, then use them to mark the block for the holes. I've laid out the slots and with a center punch, marked the ends of the two slots in each work holder. With a 7/16 inch bit in the drill press, I'm drilling holes through the holders at each marked spot. Set up your plunge router with its edge guide and a 7/16 inch straight bit. Route from hole to hole, opening the slots. Do the job in stages, cutting a little deeper with each pass. When you're about halfway through the stock, turn it over and work from that side. With the key in place and the vertical work holder registered on the block, use a transfer punch to mark the block. Align a square on each mark in turn and scribe lines from end to end. And scribe a line 3/4 of an inch from each side of the two dados. Mark each of the 8 points where these lines intersect with the center punch. Then drill a 5/16 inch diameter hole through the block at each mark. I drilled the holes and now I'm going to tap them using a 3/8 inch 16 tap. The tip of the tap is tapered. Fit it into the hole and slowly, carefully start to turn it. Keep it upright. Once the tap is cutting, you can turn faster. Tapping wood isn't like tapping metal or plastic. You don't need any cutting fluid. The next step is to glue and clamp the top support to the body of the block. After the glue sets, I'll scrape off any glue squeeze out, then joint the top surface to flatten it and square it to the face. It's essential that the top be square to the face. The registration line is critical to the use of the block. Guided by a square, score a line across the center of the top. Then highlight it with a red pencil. We turn now to making the router stops. The finished stops are pretty small, so start with a single board milled to the right thickness and ripped to the correct width, but leave it longer than the combined length of the two stops. The extra length makes it easier and safer to cut the mounting slots. These slots are formed the same way we did the mounting slots in the work holders. That is, drill end holes, then route out the material between them to the plunge router and edge guide. Next, set up your router table with a 1/2 inch straight bit adjusted to cut 3/16 inch deep as I've done here, and set the fence 3/4 of an inch from the bit. Clean up and joint the block's top and route a keyway in it. Route the matching keyway in the router stop blank. Now you can cross-cut the stops from the blank, make keys, and glue them to the stops. Several threaded holes are needed to mount and adjust the router stops. To make them, you repeat the technique used to do the work holder mounting holes in the face of the block. Here are the two parts for the guide track. This is the back, which you can see I've drilled for mounting screws. The track bottom here is also drilled. Its thickness is a few thousandths greater than that of the facing on my edge guide. With the track mounted on the block, I want to confirm that the edge guide fits properly. You can see that it does. It moves easily in the track, but it doesn't wiggle. If you don't get a fit like this in your first try, pull the screws and fix it. We have reached the end of the project. The mortising block is basically assembled. There may be a little bit of refinements to be done here and there, but we got it together, and I'd like to take it for a kind of a test drive. So I've marked here a red line. The jig and the stops and the router are all set up to cut a specific size of mortise. And here's my setup line, which I align with the registration line of the jig. I'm just going to use a clamp to hold it in place, and that won't interfere with the router. I'm going to set my router in place, and I will cut the mortise. So here it is, the first mortise done with this mortising block. I've done this mortise, I can do a dozen more or 50 more, and they'll all come out the same. It's easy when you know how.